Dear friends, welcome to the webinar on cosmic music and the nature of sound. This is an important landmark webinar for us, especially those who have been involved with the music of the mother and Sri Aurobindo and Sunilda. It is important because of the mother's work in this field of music from the 1930s, 40s, 50s onwards, and later through Sunilda in what was called or is called the New Year's music. The mother gave a lot of importance to music for transformation, music that can take you deeper into your inner consciousness and bring you in touch with your psychic being. Her own organ compositions are magnificent, and this work that she did in the 1930s up to up to the 70s actually, and then taken over in the 60s by Sunilda, is something that I think is a precursor to a new kind of music that we have all been looking for. And that is what brings me to the work of Silvia Nakkach and Steven Halpern, both in their own fields, in their own separate ways, in their own original domains of creation, in a sense have touched that chord of what can be called future music, the new music, the music of tomorrow, a music that can transform, that can take you into a deeper domains of yourself and into the world of what the mother called the sphere of music. She said there is a subtle sphere of that exists in the universe, and music actually flows down from that subtle atmosphere or hemisphere. And those that can bring down a pure transcendent music will be able to create a vibration on earth that can help those who are looking for a growth and change of consciousness, to grow inwardly and to develop and deepen their consciousness. So with this, I would like to introduce both the great musicians that we have on today. I will begin with Silvia Nakkach. I think we posted these bios to you, but just to highlight a few important points. Silvia Nakkach is a Grammy-nominated musician and is an author, internationally accredited specialist in applications of the voice and generative sound and music in therapeutic processes and shamanic practices. Silvia holds degrees in education, clinical psychology, music psychotherapy, and music composition. She is also the founding director of the International Vox Mundi School of Sound and the Voice, and is devoted to the preservation of sacred vocal cultures through education and spiritual service. Silvia acts as an adjunct faculty of East-West Psychology at the California Institute of Integral Studies. Strangely, CIIS in USA was founded by Haridas Chaudhary, one of the early disciples of Sri Aurobindo. So here is again a wonderful psychic connection with the music of the mother and Silvia's own teaching, and she's offering there a certificate program on sound, voice, and music in the healing arts. And her scholarly research is on the intersection of music and consciousness transformation. She has devoted almost 40 years of study and performance of Indian raga singing under the direction of the late Maestro Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, and presently Pandit Uday Bhavalkar, master of the Dhrupad tradition. You will see on your email her website and her music school, and also a wonderful book that she's authored, Free Your Voice. With that, I would like to introduce our very eminent second participant, musician, Steven Halpern. who of course I'm meeting for the first time myself, but of course, but have been hearing his music for many, many years, and I'm a great fan of his. He is an internationally acclaimed keyboardist, composer, producer, and pioneering sound healer. Through his Inner Peace series of mindful meditative classics like Chakra Suite and Deep Alpha, he helped introduce the concept of sound healing to the fields of holistic medicine, psychotherapy, mainstream media, and spiritual seekers worldwide. He was influenced and inspired by the reading of Hazrat Inayat Khan and Edgar Seiss. These are very important names for us. Hazrat Inayat Khan has written one of the most wonderful books on music that is a perennial classic for all of us who have read it. He studied jazz and is a trumpet player and guitarist. He writes very interestingly, and this is something I want to question him on. And, I must tell you all that do write your questions out, even whatever questions you have, keep noting them down, because we will have a live Q&A after each musician presents, and it would be lovely to have your questions. But his life changed, he says, in 1965, when he experienced the music playing through me rather than from me. In November 1969, he was initiated into the ancient lineage of sound healers during a spontaneous meditation in a sacred redwood grove, and so on. And in 2009, Steven collaborated with Silvia, and that is why they're both here again together. And this is a landmark album that I would highly recommend each of you to find and to listen to in full. This album is from the primordial Om mantra. It's called Om Zone. I think they will play a bit of it. Features Silvia's solo improvisations over a background choir, sustained drones, and tanpura. Wonderful composition. Steven has authored 2 best-selling books, Tuning the Human Instrument and Sound Health, and has appeared in hundreds of television and radio programs. So with this, I will leave it now to the 2 musicians to take over. May I request that Silvia begins, ladies first, her presentation.
So I was just saying that I'm speechless, so I'm mute. I've been muted, and in part is because I've been feeling lately my heart being completely filled with gratitude. And so the gratitude is something that I feel right now when I see Ameeta and remember the time that we spent together with my Guruji Uday Pawalkar and this wonderful group of people, and all these events when we were at the center of Gnostic Centre in, I think it was 2019 probably, or 2018. I remember being in heaven, in a heavenly space, and feel that gratitude that the Mother is always taking me to places like this, like it's taking me like in a tray. I feel like she's taking me to places of bliss and different versions of God, and closer to that sense of devotion. And when I see Ameeta, and probably Ritika is there too, we became very good friends, I want to say thank you so much for having us. I wanted to start with a prayer, which that's what I usually do, and whatever we do, and with Steve as well, with the Steven, is we always kind of create what I like to call now the yoga mat of music, which is the drone. So if everybody has the musicians on will hear without saturation. So we highly recommend that you do that device on your Zoom-in, because drones had that tendency of overload frequencies. So, Om. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarurpini Vidyam Rambam Karisyame Siddhe Bhavantu Me Sada Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham 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 Chidananda Rupa Shivoham 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 Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. And the mother will say, music involves a vital power of expression with inspiration coming from above. in its relationship with sound, music can induce ecstasy, trance, as a form of spiritual intoxication. And through the practice of music, devotion and aspiration can grow and prepare one's nature for realization. Mira Alfasa, known in India as the Supreme Mother. Prepare our nature for realization. Prepare our nature for realization. Realization of the cultivation of the aspiration. And then this is part of the gratitude that I feel lately. Especially after 3 years of becoming absolutely almost unplugged in terms of being more and more acoustic with music, singing alone with a drone, and realizing that how can I be just wholly, openly intoxicated by music when I'm completely alone for 3 years? And who is with me? Who is taking care of me? Who is protecting me from wherever the fears were? The curiosity, the vocal cultivation, my gurus, the source, my Saraswatis, my images, my lights. So I more and more move from this idea of music being, as a composer, yes, music is a great way to spend time together with people, but in this time I had to spend time with myself. So music became so many layers of listening. And what I like to bring to you is the cosmic layer of listening, the nature of sound. How did I get to the point where the even the science and the neurobiology of music and all these ideas that I was so involved while doing the sound healing practices, they really got in a different layer. What came first, after being in my space of silence and music and yogas, it came to the possibility of music being absolute poetry. So from sound and all these neurobiologies, neurophysiologies, pseudoscience of music, I say, why? Music is in this world to quiet the mind, to accompany the mind, to make it sensitive to divine intervention. I don't need to analyze the music. The music doesn't have a meter anymore for me. Because the only meter, the only time is how much time I spend making the music, listening. So I'm grateful now to the music. Before it was a job. I was working with the music and I was trying things with music, and I do the same, but now with a sense of gratitude, because the music became what the music, through this, especially through the voice, the music became the mother. And this is what I like to bring to us today. This fantasy. Sound is always in the feedback loop between fantasy and materiality. Yeah, sound is physical, but sound is also a metaphor. And I can spend a whole week thinking and feeling the metaphors and the fantasies that sound, the vibration brings to me and music brings to me. But there's something, and of course I know it's materiality, it's physics, it's frequency, it's neural patterns, it's all that. But there's something about the essence of being in sound and becoming one with the protection that is the mother. In the beginning, when we are born, before we are born, the only thing we hear is drones in the belly of the mother. So that's the physicality, the materiality that I'm talking. I mean, the feedback loop between materiality, vibration, and the metaphysics of sound, right? But there's something about the sound that we are here when we are in the womb, and it's the most intimate sound of the drones of all the liquids of the placenta. So more and more the voice becomes the way that we connect with the mother. And then when we are born, we scream, woo! You know, there's a big scream. It's the voice is telling us we are alive. We connect with the prana, with the liveness of the sound. So the reality is that people come to me for years now, many, many years, and say, oh, I don't have a voice, I have a voice, oh, my voice, my. Wait a minute. The voice is the placenta. The voice is the mother. The voice is the most intimate space of coexistence that we have with ourselves. And our self that is transcendent, our self that is beyond any hierarchy. This is God, this is no, beyond any duality. See, the beautiful idea of the voice being the placenta and the movements of the voice being the umbilical cord is not just mine. But it's such a wonderful way to understand that the voice is a protection. It's something that we have to release freedom, to be alive, instead of feeling that I sing, I don't sing, yes, no. I feel, you know, the voice for me, it was the way that I was accompanying myself. I was remember the people I love. So I bring to you this possibility of understanding the voice. When we listen to our voice, we listen to that space of intimate, absolutely intimacy with the mother. In that space, there's no conditions. There's only the multi-possibility, the resonance of the possibility of becoming. The power of the plurality of becoming every day a different voice, every day a different self. Who am I? Who am I? See, the voice becomes that place where if we take the voice out, you know, beyond the archetype of the singer, you know, all that I did for a long time as well. See, that's fun, but the voice is so intimate. It's a possibility of emotion, and the emotions are a possibility for us to becoming closer to versions of the divine, versions of God, becoming closer to my favorite definition of devotion, which I like to read to you. Devotion is the most natural sense of awareness, the most absolutely comfortable way to be in a space where everything is very simple. It's the simplest form of awareness. It's an aesthetic awareness. It's pure love. It's very natural. There is nothing more innocent than devotion. Nothing more divine. Nothing closer to God. Devotion is not practiced. It is the spontaneous dignity of a purified life. Devotion is bhakti, but it's beyond bhakti, because devotion starts the moment, and this is Ali Akbar Khan telling me, devotions start in the moment when the baby is given to the father and the father is looking at the baby. So that look of the first look of that Maya, when the father looks at the baby born, that's devotion. So all that for me is music. So I am now, after these 3 years of kind of retreat, I realize that I want music to be just art. I want music to be just expression. I want people to be free with music. And I just had that experience when I went to New York a few days ago, not even a week ago. I was all over upstate New York, and everybody was so happy to sing. Everybody was so happy to deep chant. And I felt like I was still there giving. So the other point of the voice as the placenta, as the mother, is understanding that the voice and sound, it's all about deep listening. It's not about hearing only. The voice is happening because we are listening. Sound is happening when we are listening. And then that listening has the potential of being very generative, very original, constantly creative. So I bring to you this idea that singing or composing music is only to be open to receive information from other dimensions. It's about relational, it's fluid. I'm telling about myself, I'm telling things that are very, very personal. My mission now as a teacher, as a person, as a composer, as a poet, as a friend, is going beyond any, if I can, any possible dismantling, I would say, any scientific or even sonic hierarchy. It's time for Shakti. It's time for allowing the voice and the sound and the music to be for everybody, and for what I call the listening to be cosmic. Like when we are children, I spent my whole life as a child listening and talking to the birds, and talking to the moon, and listening to the sound of the ocean. And my family was so generous that gave me all the education that I have, and my teachers. And generosity is where we carry through sound and music. It's unmeasurable. There's nothing that can be measured. So that's the point. That Shakti cannot be measured. It's completely generative, genetic, and that's what I wanted to say. I don't have much more time. I just wanted to say that deep listening is kind of the evolution of sound healing. And I am always in the space of the becoming and the visionary, what's coming next. Well, sooner or later we realize that the adjustment of sound healing and the future of sound healing is how we listen, not what we measure. Deep listening becomes, as my divine teacher and friend Pauline Oliveros will say, a way of duani, a way of suggestive, aesthetic suggestion, a way of listening to everything with no consideration of judgment. Deep listening is quantum. Deep listening is cosmic. Deep listening is for everybody and all people of all kinds, without any boundaries. Deep listening becomes deep when one can simultaneously target sounds and perceive the whole of the sound environment. Deep listening invokes a deep ethical dimension of the human experience. Deep listening is almost political. Becomes a way of being not aggressive with each other, because it has the potential to trigger human intelligence, compassion, understanding, and to cross all the borders of possibilities of challenge, and goes from every corner of hearing, when we become virtuoso listeners, there is aesthetic awareness, there is aesthetic suggestion. There, we don't tell people what to listen, we just listen how people are listening. So that's I have a lot of fun being in the flow of Saraswati, and in the sense that I don't need to tell people what to do or what to teach. It's just we create a relationship when we are listening together, and the music start happening as part of the generative and potential of music, sound, and vibration. I don't know if I have time to play a minute of a piece of music. I do? Okay. So Om Namah Shivaya, let's see if it will work. We never know with technology, which is another part of the materiality. Okay, let me play something new that is very, very old as well. Can you hear it? So all the music that I make is based on raga. The ragas are living in the time of the now, and they are melodies that we receive when we open to kar, to that sound of the that has the potential of also generative potential. So there is this idea of the raga being melodies, but they are very spiritually received as this after 41 years of doing raga, where I am open, I receive the raga start living within myself, and I follow the raga, and we become a dialogue, and that's the way I compose. It's composing, but also it's like a dialogue with an entity called the raga, thanks to my teachers. I receive them, and the same from my lineage in South America. I receive information of medicine melodies called the Icaros, which I can offer you another Icaro or a little Icaro later, after we see that we can, after Steven does his presentation. So, but even the Icaros of the Peruvian or the medicine melodies of the shamans and the beautiful people I met when I live in Brazil, um, or popular music. All music is about it creates the culture of how we are. It is listening that creates culture, not culture that creates listening. And then so that's what I do. I do the ragas. The ragas do ragas are kind of a divination experience. And now through the idea of Duwani and resonance and aesthetic suggestion, more and more I am open to receive information from the cosmic space, from the space that I live. The moon, the stars, the ocean, which I always live in the water, and we all have that. So we all can play music, and that's the whole point. Music is for everybody, and everybody can make music. You don't have to be a musician to make music. Thank you so much, and I come back later.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. What was the name of the composition you just played?
The name of the composition is Raga Orb. So ORB. Raga Orb. It's a whole raga composition in three parts that I made with a friend. We did it virtually with my friend Matt Levine during the 3 years of retreat that we had. So it's called Raga Orb. The album is called Strange Attractors.
Thank you so much. So, yes, so may I now invite Steven to make his presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Ameeta. So, like Sylvia, my entrance into sound has always been related to sound to quiet the mind, and even as a child I was very much taken with drones. I would find myself singing with the radiators or some hums of some machines, and I would be improvising, not official ragas, but just even as a child using my voice with that, just for my own amusement or to not be bored by the mechanical sounds. But when I started getting into music, the concept of improvisation, beyond just reading little black dots on white paper written by composers, really triggered something inside me that I really needed to study. And I got very much into the rules of improvisation, not from a Western classical position, but from a jazz tradition. I learned the scales, I learned all the rules. And as Ameeta mentioned before, in a jam session in 1965, I had an experience where after playing some of the fancy riffs and melodies that I knew to play, suddenly the trumpet basically took off by itself, and the music came through me in a way that had never come before. That was a fascinating experience, and I thought, well, where is that music coming from? Well, it was coming from, as we heard earlier, from above. And the musicians who I was playing with were skilled in that and had a sense that I would be opened up when I got to play with them. And I was allowed to become part of that band and become part of a parallel study course for what I was studying in college that also included music. That was continuing. I never expected to have a career in music, but always loved the sound of the tambura. What I didn't realize at first was that the sound of the tambura was balancing my brain waves. And I found this out because I was challenged by television and radio hosts who wouldn't let me get on their shows unless I was able to explain why the music that I do was different than other music of Western classical tradition. Now, in high school, I started hearing Ravi Shankar. In college, I actually hitchhiked from Buffalo across the border to Toronto to go to a Ravi Shankar concert. And as a Western musician, I'm in the audience, and the musicians in the tambura and Ravi Shankar are tuning up for 20 minutes. And people like me were getting a little frustrated in our seats. And the gentleman in front of me, an Indian gentleman, looked around because he heard me rustling and said, "You don't understand. They are tuning their instruments, but they're also tuning themselves and tuning the audience. They're tuning up as part of the concert." That was a life-changing moment. So I understood that. I always had, for my own concerts, a drone or a recording of a tambura going on before I started making records. And for the Western audience, tambura was still a little strange for a lot of, what's that buzzing sound, they would say? Is something the matter with that instrument? Most of the audiences did not understand that it was a very buzzing and the resonance of the tambura that would resonate and entrain the hemisphere of the brain into a deep alpha or deep theta brainwave state. I loved that. Before I knew what that was, I loved the way I felt when I got into that mindful state of being, a very peaceful state. And when I started to compose and play the music that started coming through me, people would say, "We've never heard music like that. That makes us feel so peaceful. Where can I get music like that?" And the answer to that was me finding a recording studio that I could work with and record, and then learning how to make records. And because the record labels would say to me, "Where's the beat? Where's the melody? Where's the harmony? This doesn't have anything that qualifies as music." And I said, "Well, that's because your definition of music is very limited. The ancient music was much more, and as Sylvie was mentioning, it is much more encompassing, because it's not just music as an art, but as music as an art to bring us in contact with the divine." And for the musician, what I learned in college was the role of a musician, and many of the arts, all the seven muses in the arts, in ancient Greece, in China, in Egypt, were part of our connection to our muse. So at an early age, I set my intention. I started praying to have my own connection with my muse. And Ameeta, that's what you referenced in the introduction. In 1969, on what I thought was a 2-week visit to California before I went back to graduate school in Buffalo, I had an experience where my muse contacted me. And I didn't know what that really was. I'm in the middle of a kind of a little forest, and because of some other situations, shortly, within 2 hours, I found myself at a piano in a room with no other people. So I sat down at the piano and started playing, and people walked in and went into trance, went into meditative states, and said, "This music needs to get out into the world." And I said, "Well, great. I don't know how to do that. I know nothing about business. I have no money to do any research or to record." But that wound up being the beginning of my process, which all began from my own state of consciousness, what the music did for me and brought me into those higher states. And because music is also a carrier wave for consciousness, meaning that when I am in a meditative state, I radiate and transmit those frequencies through me and through the music onto the recording, and people receive that when they listen. So that was part of what brought me into the field. Unfortunately, if you're a musician, when I started taking this music public in 1975, none of the record companies were interested in someone who had music that didn't have a beat or melody or words or etc. So they said, "Well, why don't you just make your own records and come see us in a year or two?" And when I started making my records, I'd bring them to the only stores I would take them, which were metaphysical bookstores, where I would point to the same books that I had in my personal library: The Mysticism of Sound, The Yoga of Sound, and other books like that, and also Edgar Cayce, and said, this is the music that Edgar Cayce was predicting. And several years later, I was at a conference where I met Edgar Cayce's son and grandson, and they said, we know our grandfather and father loves what you're doing, because this is what he was predicting, that music would be a source to serve the highest needs and spiritual essence of the audience, not just for entertainment or distraction. Music has become in the West certainly a form of distraction, a way to take us away from God. And this was again what Hazrat Nanaya Khan said, whereas music used to be a way to connect with God. We put that, Georgia Kelly and I, in my third album, put that on the liner notes of the back of our LP. And some of the stores were upset that we said that. And we said, no, this is the source of the music, so we're going to put that out there. And the field of music that I started, one of the main pioneers in that field, has gotten a lot of abuse, verbal abuse from the music industry and from critics who didn't understand that, who didn't want to accept that there was a spiritual basis of music, and would say, we're not even going to review music like that. And people like me just kept on doing it, and the audience kept growing, and we just carried on. So having said that, let me play, I think we could go to the first track, which is, unlike most of my recordings, which we'll hear in just a couple minutes, this one was where I wanted to have a background for my own chanting of Om, which when I sang by myself at home, kind of was lonely. So I put together a background drone and chanted Om in tonics and fifths, and did a couple versions, brought in another vocalist, and I wanted something more, and that's when I reached out and contacted Silvia. And she said, well, you know, I sing regular ragas. I don't know, I'm not so sure about this improvisation, but let's give it a try. And she was great. And then when we took that back in the studio, I did some editing with the engineer. And what happened is I never actually sang and improvised with Silvia. I was singing to another vocalist that I had on the album, but the tracks got mixed, and my voice worked perfectly with Silvia. So I couldn't have done it better if I planned, and that's why the album has this as the first song. So this is from the album, Om Zone, 432 hertz. We'll talk about that later, but this is track 1, and we can play it right now. If you remember, the cover of the album has the Om symbol and the Sri Yantra. And what many people don't know, and I learned this from an illustration in Carl Jung's book on mandalas, from the science of cymatics, when the Om sound is, that was the name of the track, was Om Zone 432 Hertz, Part 1. A very simple title because that's how the tracks are named on the album, featuring Silvia Nakkach. Now, the Sri Yantra is formed when you say the Om sound, and then as you close your mouth to make the M sound, there's a series of diminishing harmonics that creates the image of the intersecting triangles. If you make that into a sand-covered plate over something called a cymoscope. So that shows some of the physical realities behind the sounds. The science of cymatics was very instrumental when I started learning about that, because it offered sound evidence that sound really does have power in the physical as well as in the spiritual transcendent dimensions. Now, having said that, I want to play the second track, which is more of what I am basically known for, a very special instrument called the Rhodes electric piano. It's basically a series of tuning forks that are played with a keyboard, and then of course you'll hear some of the drone underneath. But what I am able to do in the studio is I could fine-tune the frequencies that the drone sound will stimulate and entrain your brain, so I could get you into either an alpha state or a theta state, just depending on what frequencies we make in the studio that is underneath the music. So on this track, I have the music tuned to a deep theta wavelength, a very meditative state, because I thought that would be very, very appropriate for us this evening. The track name is, again, from this album, very functional. It's called Deep Theta Track 1, or Deep Theta Part 1, and here it is. Right, so in this state, when I set this drone and this ambience, I am listening on headphones, so I am myself in that state, and then that entire piece was improvised. I had no plan, nothing written out before I recorded that, and was just in the flow. So that was Deep Theta Part 1. Now on the album, I also did, in this next piece, we recorded video live, which I usually find distracting, but I was able to work with it this time. So you'll see me playing, and I notice there's a little bit of glitching in the video, but you could get the point. This is with a marvelous bass player named Michael Manring, who came in after I did my part, and he added his part. Deep Theta Part 2, here we go. January 4th, 2011. Now you may notice that you're breathing more deeply and slowly now. That's a natural effect of having the relaxation effect listening to this music. You'll notice also that there's a lot of space in the music. One of the things that I learned early on, before even Deepak Chopra was talking about tuning in to the gaps between thoughts. I was talking about, in my own work, the spaces between the notes and the silence between the notes. And this was a radical departure from my earlier life, where as a jazz musician, the more notes you played, the faster that you played, the better you were considered as a musician. In this kind of music, it's not about speed, but it's the slowness. And as one of the other things that I mentioned earlier in my written introduction was that one of my main inspirations that I was listening to before I started really composing my own music was particularly the alap portions of raga, that were the slow meditative parts. And I made my own little mixtapes of all my Indian albums with Ravi Shankar and Alayappa Khan and everybody else, just the alap portions, so that I could stay in that zone and not. I love the tabla and I love that part also, but there was a part of me that just needed to be slow. I grew up outside of New York City. My nervous system was already pretty quick. I needed to get a little extra assistance in becoming one with the music and getting in touch with my own inner self. So I know I started late, but I'll let Ameeta, how are we doing on time? And maybe we open up to some questions or whatever else you would like me to do.
You have another 3-4 minutes, so you can, and after that we'll open to questions. You can play a few tracks. People like to hear your music, so 1 or 2 tracks.
Okay, well those are the 3 samples I had, because I was told to limit to 3. But of course, you can go to YouTube now, where I have many videos with many of the main songs and tracks from my main albums, and even some of the non-main albums. And what's so interesting now, when I started and was speaking about music for health, I got such bad looks from when I would go to radio stations or TV stations that nobody's interested in music for health and well-being. I said, I am, because but my doctor said, if I don't learn how to relax, if I don't learn how to de-stress, how to manage my stress, I'm going to have a lot of physical illnesses, which are very expensive. So those are 2 things that got my attention: expense and illness. So I started using music as my own medicine. And my first audience was me. I did a lot of my recordings for me first, on little recordings at home. And then when other people said, we'd like copies, took that on out there. Well, when in the mid-1970s in America, the field of holistic medicine really came out. The concept of stress became known to medical people and the media. I was the first person to put together the fact that music can help you manage stress. But you can't listen to Beethoven or Mozart because they were stressed when they were writing, and they were all masters, but they were not working to reduce stress. They were not composing. That was not their intention. Mozart was, composing in the caffeine, in the coffee capital of Europe. People didn't want to slow down then. They needed to speed up. I needed to slow down. And what I found is that there were more and more people every year who wanted music to help them experience inner peace, to help them slow down. And then you could listen to other music at other times. People had problems going to sleep, me being one of them. So I listened to my own music as I'm falling asleep. And that's been a life-changing, functional aspect of sound health. When a large publishing company said, we want to do a book on sound health, and I said, well, I'm already writing a book on sound health. They said, well, why don't you write it for us? So I wound up getting published by Harper and Row and went on a national tour, and every radio station and TV station and newspaper that I went to said, we've never heard anybody talk about music and sound for health. I said, well, that's why I'm here, because that's what that's my job in the world, to put that out and to turn people on to the possibility, the potential, and the functionality that if you use the right music, you can have wonderful results.
Thank you. One question, Stephen. When you write your music, when you compose, do you use the conventional, now, in this kind of music, do you use the conventional way of writing music like we do in the classical music, or do you have your own music? How do you compose your music?
You saw it right there. I compose in the moment at the keyboard. I mean, sometimes I'll get some ideas in meditation or watching a sunset, or I'll sit down at a keyboard and a phrase will come. And then when I go to the studio, I will build on that. But I basically never write anything down. I go into the studio ready to receive. And when the inspiration flows, and in concert, the same things. I have songs that I could do variations of, but there's always, as a jazz musician in my background, there's always new things that come in. That keeps it vital and alive for me. But no, I don't write things down on line paper. I'm just in the moment, and that's why the beauty of modern recording is it's one step shopping. It's one stop. It's everything is right there, and that's allowed me to do what I do.
I was asking because I compose it, and then I have to record it. Otherwise, I might not be, because I don't write it either. So then it's very difficult to figure out how to write it. And I must say that Sunil Da, who the mother had, trained as a musician, he didn't know music notation. So he wrote in mathematical symbols. All his music was written in the most unbelievable mathematics. He had actually originally originated a whole new way of writing his music. And it was very original, but only he could understand it or read it. But yeah, it was obviously after he had created it, then he wrote it down. So do you write it down afterwards, or you don't write it down at all?
Usually no.
Usually not. Okay.
It's just the listening. It's in the moment.
Okay. So now I'd like to open it up to the audience. You can unmute anybody who would like to ask a question. Can put up their hands. You could ask your questions to Silvia and to Stephen, and they will take live questions and answer. Yes, Aurelio?
Yeah, I'm just very grateful. It's kind of like a homecoming. So beautiful to have Silvia and Stephen here, because we listened to Stephen's music for 30 years, kind of like. I'm based in Aurobindo in Pondicherry, and my question, I'm very happy when I say homecoming, because what we heard from the mother was always of the spiritual origin of the music, and that we just have to receive it. We have to open towards it. And Silvia said it's so beautiful. And from your experience also, how it comes down into us and something else is taking us. My question is, because both of you, your music is flowing more in the domain of svara, of frequencies and of melody. And from the ancient premise of music in the Vedic system, they talk about Sangitam. This music has three parts. So there is the melody part, there is the rhythm part, and the rhythm is anyway there in the melody through the breath. I think through the movement of the breath. What I wanted to ask in your journey, and because Silvia was doing so much chanting also, what about the word? Is there a possibility also of receiving the new word? For instance, what people in hip hop and freestyling, they manage to go into such a surrender that also the lyrics and poetry is coming through, but very rarely actually, like as we know from the ancient traditions, that also the speaking in tongues, that the new word is manifesting. So I'm posing that question to Silvia.
Sylvia?
Thank you, Aurelio. Namaste. So nice to see you. Also coming home to see you. I wish I'd be there too. So the point is generative. The idea that that actually, what I understand from your inquiry, which is not a question, is that when we are open in the now, in the placenta, in a place of intimate relationship with music, with the mother, with God, in that space we receive words, we receive any, it can be I am amazed by rap and bebop and all these incredible musicians that receive all those words, the shabdas, the the wanis. There are so many multi-way. I mean, everything is vibration that is not actually is configured, but not is not clinging with anything. If you hear the incredible modern music of the bebop or rap, they continuously, it's a drone what they are doing. They're generating. So what is the generative aspect is the listening. They are completely in the nounness, and they are not afraid of silence. They are not afraid of music. There is a curiosity of opening the imagination, and there is a message. So the meaningful, what I call the meaningful relating of the music becoming a portal, or sound becoming a portal to transcendence and relationships. I can make a relationship with the cosmic God, or I can make a relationship with Aurelio and your instruments. But the whole point is the mindset of the generative, the generosity of music. John Cage also talks about music being very generous. So that's the point, is the mindset, which I invented a word now. I call it sound set. The whole mind is in the dimension of sound and cosmic listening. And I am not there. I am just a portal, and I'm open and I'm receiving and I trust.
Thank you. Well, there's another question that is, there are lots of people who are viewing us on YouTube. So there's someone from YouTube who's asked, Swastik Sikdar, he's asked, what is the nature of sound of Indian drums, like tabla, dholak, pole? What is the nature of that sound of the Indian drums? Would anyone like to answer that?
Well, the nature, the Indian instruments are made with natural elements, and basically, officially, they are calls. They are calls to their onomatopoeias of and sounds. So they're referring or imitating sounds of the cosmos, animals, sounds of the earth. My tabla is not around, but if I play any instrument like this one, they are made with all natural elements, and they connect with cosmic phenomena as well. And the tabla, especially, when you play the tabla, I used to play the tabla for a long time. I mean, you're creating sounds that are, you're talking to different bird calls and the sounds of the earth and the ocean sounds. So it's all cosmic music.
And also what's happening with that
Yes, Steve.
is that because you have the low frequencies and it resonates the entire torso, the entire body. So it's almost like an internal vibrational massage. So you have all the things going on at once. Fantastic instruments, and of course played by great
But
great
now
percussionists.
the instruments want to be also transcendent, infinite, beyond, forever. It will never stop. Doesn't even need to be played.
There's another question. What kind of music could help with weight loss or any other kind of addiction? The
Well,
music.
I'd like to answer that one because my music has been used in many addiction centers. Some of the music that we've just heard, and with weight loss, a lot of weight loss centers and people who tried other weight loss systems because relaxation. A lot of people eat because of stress, so just getting them to relax and reduce their stress helps the body become more healthful and the weight comes off. But to focus the effect, I have also produced albums with subliminal affirmations that target and use the harness the power of the subconscious mind to assist the body in making more effective use of the food they eat, to eat less, and to now, as Deepak Chopra and Dr. Bruce Lipton talk about, engaging and instructing our genes to express for optimal health. And the genes and our brains and our subconscious do this most effectively when you're in an alpha or theta state. Most music keeps you in a high frequency beta state, which is great for many things, talking or general life. But when you want to get into a meditative state and speak to your own cells, that goes, and that's what the research starting in the 70s went public with alpha state and theta state. So that is part of what you want to be in to work with your own consciousness, to enable and empower your innate healing wisdom in your own intelligence and your own body.
Could you give an name of one of your albums that does this, the subliminal?
Right. Called Listen and Lose Weight.
Oh, wait. Wow, that's pretty correct. Okay. Richard?
And I have other ones, Overcoming Substance Abuse, Overcoming Addictions. And I worked on those with the great author, researcher, and addiction specialist, Dr. John Dr. John Bradshaw. In fact, today is the anniversary of my first concert with him 35 years ago. And he changed America by introducing people to this whole concept of how other ways to deal with addiction rather than just drugs.
Yes, thank you. Richard Gold, who of course was on our webinar last month, wants to say something. Yes, Richard?
Thank you so much. I don't have a question. I have an expression of gratitude, especially for all three of you. Ameeta, you're remarkable what you provide. Silvia, it's so good to see you. We met at CIHS. And Steven, I've been inspired by you since the late 70s. You wouldn't remember it, but I was like a groupie. I carried your piano into one of the early holistic seminars in Washington, D.C. that Effie Chow hosted.
Oh, I remember that one where I brought my own Fender Rose, a rented Fender Rose on the plane. They didn't want to take it. I couldn't find a taxi to fit it in. That was the first and only time I did. Thank you for helping with that.
We met out on the mall in D.C. and I
Yes.
was very familiar with your work. I'd come down from acupuncture school in Boston at the time. So thank you. This was inspirational, what you guys provided tonight. The level that you were channeling and providing was just deep and profound. Much gratitude. And Ameeta, it's always lovely to be in your presence.
Any other questions that I've missed out on? Okay, from YouTube, Alok Mahanti Is there any observation regarding transformative, regenerating, and new neural pathways in activity in this kind of music? I think you've answered it, but you might want to.
There's research being done with neuroplasticity, which some of the research, this is not my field, but some of the people who are in that field say that music like mine, because it takes us out of the usual ways that we listen to music, allows for new synaptic connections to be made and allows your brain, it doesn't program us to respond in the usual ways, so new connections are being made. It's a very interesting new area to explore, but I don't have, so that's what I would share about that.
Thank you. And Silvia, there's a question for you.
Wanted to add something to that question. That is been done a lot, and I've been doing creating so many curriculums on sound and healing for the past 20 years. I think that wherever we talk about neuroscience and music and brain and music and frequency and music, is not for everybody. I mean, we want to realize that music is art. And the point is that whatever my mother will like, the other person will not. But if we couldn't understand that there is an aesthetic suggestion, and we need to work with the listening more than the music, and then we get into the next level. Because the whole point is there is an infinite quality, that fluid quality of different cultural listening. So if I am in Brazil in the Amazon, I'm a traveler, so I know that the music that I'm playing here will sound different because people are listening differently when they are living in nature. So I learned so much from traveling, and music is a way of traveling as well. But I would say that these correspondences are really cool and maybe sometimes work, but let it be different for different people. And that means that we need to work harder. We need to do what Pauline Oliveros used to say, that I've been practicing a lot lately, which is, telepathic listening. How the other person is listening. Why do I have to play instruments on the top of a head of someone when I can just spend a time listening to a beautiful deep chant and allow for that person to listen to the mother, the voice? So there's many different ways to bring music and sound back to art, to aesthetics, to ras, to energy, and shakti. And that's what I think, being more careful about realizing that different people listen differently. That's all.
Last question before we end, because we are coming to close time, there's a question. Silvia spoke of the importance of sound, the voice. I suppose that is inner as well. And the question is, how would it be for a deaf or a mute person, this listening of sound, that you spoke of the importance of sound? How would a deaf or a mute person who doesn't speak, how would he relate to that?
It's really about vibrational and vibrational relational. It's a relation, it's vibration, and there's I've been working with an incredible percussionists that are deaf or they cannot hear well, and it's really about listening with the body. You have the whole body to listen. You have your whole skin to listen.
The cells listen,
yeah.
Not just the ears, but also if one organ of ours doesn't function as well, other organs tend to become more sensitive and more open to make up for that deficiency of one particular organ. And of course, that's very well known in science. Okay, so we would then come to the end of our webinar. Thank you so much. There's so much more that one could discuss, and I think we've had a very rich discussion, a very rich listening, a very rich bringing together of traditions, of music, and of touching something new, something of the future, something deeper that is emerging in music. The idea, especially that what is the purpose of music? I found that very important. It's something I think we need to delve into much more deeply. What is music for? Is it for distraction? Is it for entertainment? Or can it also be a way of elevating one's consciousness and bringing us absolutely close to the divine source of our being and therefore of all beings? Um, so, with that, I'd like to thank you all. I especially want to thank Stephen and Sylvia for making the time to come here. And I hope all of you will listen to their music. Before we end, Sylvia, would you like to do a prayer?
I will.
Okay. So we end with this prayer and then we close.
Thank you, Ameeta, for your divine listening. Thank you. You know, being with Stephen is like being in the source, and the source of this chant is the mother, the voice. Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame Parame Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame Shari Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame Peace, peace, peace. To all the mothers, to all the voices, to all the possibilities of liberation to sound. Thank you so much for listening.